right, marketers, grab your overpriced standing desk and that oat milk latte you love so much, because welcome to Notorious B2B, the only show where we treat LinkedIn drama like breaking news and expose the real B2B marketing sins.
Yeah, think of us like SNL meets TMZ, but for the people who argue about whether gated content is still a thing or not. I'm Task Bober, B2B landing page nerd and lovable troll on LinkedIn.
And I'm Tim Davidson, the guy making TikTok-style videos and cutting fruit on LinkedIn. Together, we're cutting out nonsense and roasting the most ridiculous trends in B2B marketing.
Because if we have to suffer through another 10 things getting engaged taught me about B2B sales, we're taking you all down with us.
Let's get into it.
Hello.
Hey.
Look, you're so on time.
I try to be.
Oh my gosh, nice to officially meet you.
I know, right? It's been long overdue.
We've only done two-way harassment for a long time online, and then never made it like an official thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Tim is not here today and he tried to cancel on me. And I said, no, here's the thing. I don't need you to do this podcast.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And he's like, bet. And I said, bet. And I sent you guys a message and I said, what are you doing at 2:00 today? And Clark said the absolute correct answer, which was whatever you have in mind for me. And I was like, this is the kind of energy I need on LinkedIn. And then Liam played a little hard to get, which is,
And meanwhile, I just said, yeah, I'm probably doing exactly what you're about to tell me I'm doing. So,
yes, exactly.
So what's up?
Okay. So I only have a few key topics to talk about today. They're mainly your topics, but for anybody who's listening and not watching, I have special guests here today. Clark Barron, that's how we pronounce your name on the show. Tim made you French.
Hey, I am Clark Barron. I'm the CEO and founder of Ronin, a marketing agency in the IT and cybersecurity industries. I'm also the founder and editor arsonist in chief at Burn It Down, which is a rogue media platform that covers everything that no one else is willing to talk about in B2B marketing.
Okay. So the reason I thought that we should definitely have this is, Clark, you released a post today. And yesterday, Liam and I were kind of talking about like, oh, what are the anchors that Liam could come in and kind of talk about on the show as well? And then you just presented the opportunity, which I loved. And so I was like, okay, great. I'm just going to have him come and talk about this, because in last week's episode, we did talk about G2 and the paywall situation for those who love to just listen randomly, like Anthony Perry, and then make full judgments about the show. If you missed it, G2 is a review site. Hopefully you know that. They have their badges, but most brilliant marketing play on every single B2B website there is. But now they're going to charge you to showcase those badges, which you were like, no thanks, Satan, not today. Love that. Love it. Love the energy. But now they're in the news for something else, and I want you to cover it. You can either give the TLDR, you can read your posts the way I read your posts in my head, which is just like angry shouting.
One of the things that I've been told recently is everybody expects that. Everybody expects like, just read it angrily. That's how everybody kind of reads my posts or my articles and just gets really hyped up. I write and speak more with what I would call just composed rage, to the point where this isn't funny anymore, especially with a lot of the shit that's going on. So I'll give you the TLDR. I released an article, and let me preface this. I do run a website called burnitdown.marketing, where it started out as my newsletter. It turned out, thank you so much for calling it the news. That's very generous. But anyway, so, I've taken on Gartner and Dark Social and intent data and all that. And I saw a post the other day from a couple of folks at G2 where they were announcing a recent acquisition of a company, a tool called Unsurvey, which sounds really weird because I've never heard of it. As it turns out, no one has ever heard of it. And so those posts just scratched the part of my brain that I can't ignore, and generally where no good can ever come from. And so I just jumped down the rabbit hole as far as I possibly could. As it turns out, and here's the TLDR, Unsurvey is being marketed and touted by G2 as being revolutionary AI technology centered around conversational workflows and whatnot, to where you're going to be able to, and this is what G2 is wanting you to do with this technology that they're going to implement, however they're going to implement it, which is very important how they're going to implement this technology, and we'll get to that. But what they're enabling is reviewers to have a conversation with AI, where the AI will prompt you and you will be using voice and just talking to it, conversation. And then that is translated into actionable insights, data for not only G2, but the vendors, yada, yada, yada. So this sounded to me really weird, because why? Why do that? What makes them think that anybody would want to talk to an AI to give a review? The whole thing that Unsurvey's team was saying, their talking points, their talk track was, no one wants to fill out a form anymore. Okay, fair. That's understandable. But does that apply here? Because we're not really filling out a form, where we're talking about essentially a Yelp review for software platforms. So what's the problem there? What's the actual use case here? So of course, the first thing I did is I went to Unsurvey's website and just started poking around, and their AI, which obviously built on this, whatever G2 got, started talking to me. I struck up a conversation and I started pushing pretty hard. I said that I was looking for more information about the technical specifications, the models that it was built on, all these like really hard questions. Completely evasive, didn't answer anything. Spoke about confidentiality agreements, which is interesting. If it's proprietary, revolutionary proprietary technology, then who do you have a confidentiality agreement with, right? If it's yours. So as it turns out, and I'll have to reference my actual article that I've got pulled up here, because this story gets really, really wild. So I started to dig into the actual companies, and I'd never looked them up on LinkedIn. I just went from the folks at G2's posts straight to the Unsurvey website. But once I actually got into the company's LinkedIn profiles, I noticed something really weird. The URL for Unsurvey says Unsurvey by Coralie, as in like linkedin.com/company/ Unsurvey by Coralie. What's Coralie? What actually is that? As it turns out, that is a SaaS platform that is in the world of pricing optimization. And so it took me a little bit of digging to figure out that the actual legal entity is, and so through trying to put together all these puzzle pieces about why G2 would want this technology in Unsurvey, and figuring out that the legal entity, like the umbrella, the parent company, whatever, like what's a company, what's a product, what's actually going on here. I found out that, as it turns out, in the documentation of Coralie, which is Unsurveyed, the way that they built their optimization platform is honestly nothing more than a thinly GPT wrapped Zapier workflow. They didn't really build anything. They assembled it, like third-party integrations, which kind of explains the confidentiality agreements and all those really weird things that I couldn't figure out initially. As it turns out, like everything they do is built off of OpenAI, which is explained confidentiality restrictions, DeepGram, which is speech to text, 11 Labs, which is voice synthesis and cloning. We'll get to that. And then some other like Daily, Microsoft for cloud hosting, whatever. What I started to think was, wait a minute, is G2 actually the villain in this story? Because it sounds like they got taken for a ride. What I had to figure out was, why does G2, what do they actually want with this GPT wrapped nonsense that someone could build over a weekend? Like there's no actual value there for G2. That just didn't make any sense. But once I discovered the whole Coralie thing, I started to dive into that. And while there are parallels in their technology, there's actually a lot more to Corally than there is Unsurvey. And that's where it gets really, really interesting. And it's also why you're not in any of the marketing theater nonsense that G2 is putting on right now. You're never going to hear them say the word Corally, and there is a reason. They want it to be all about Unsurvey. As it turns out, Corally is actually the company that they acquired. So what they did, buried in Corally's technical documentation is a fully operational recommendation and experimentation infrastructure that is designed not just to test pricing, but to influence behavior. It segments audiences, and it has the capability to, I don't know their intent, however, there's not really another use case for this. It has the ability to serve manipulated outcomes at scale. This is not some automated survey AI agent. It is a full-blown automated influence engine. And I'll actually quote their own documentation. Users are placed into dynamic cohorts based on behavioral data and platform context. Experiments are run in real time. Everything from pricing to recommendations can be A/B tested on the fly. The system tracks lift, conversion influence, and optimization metrics, then serves the most effective variant to future users. Now, to anybody out there that's wondering, is this just A/B testing? It's like in real time? Sure, but also when you combine that with the full capabilities of what not only G2 has in existing tech, but what Corally and Unsurvey bring to this whole equation, that's when it gets kind of scary. Because if you consider the tech that Unsurvey is built on, GPT, no big deal. But when you integrate 11 Labs with all of that, that's when the voice stuff gets really shady really quick.
Yeah, I was just talking about 11 Labs on a client call before we jumped on this. And I'd first heard of it with Ross Simmons. He was on the Event Shark podcast, and he said that he'll find a topic he wants to learn more about. He will have ChatGPT kind of do a write-up, and then he takes that write-up and he puts it into 11 Labs that has basically synthesized his own voice. And then he goes on a walk and listens to himself explaining to him about this topic. And he's like, that's how I would sound once I'm fully knowledgeable about this topic. I'm like, wow, that is an insane use case.
I think there's a word for that.
Oh no.
But when it comes to the voice cloning capabilities, I had to dig into the history of the team leads and the executives on Unsurvey and Corally's team. I dug all through their LinkedIn, their Twitter.
I think you might have done more digging than they probably did on the acquisition.
Once I discovered everything that I did, I went, who do either one of them know what's actually going on here?
I don't think so. It doesn't sound like it.
But here's where it gets like where they completely jump the shark. Like to this point, we've got a GPT wrapper. We've got, pricing, A/B testing, whatever. It sounds really innocuous. Here's where it gets completely insidious. In Praveen Malu's LinkedIn post, he was actually revealing parts about how they're using voices to simulate conversations. At Unsurvey, we believe simulations won't replace real-world insights, but can complement it by filling crucial gaps. Unsurvey can now automatically simulate conversations based on contextual, relevant personas. At Unsurvey, we just launched a feature that lets you bring your own voices to the platform. Yes, even through instant voice cloning. That just blew my mind. And this was pre-acquisition. This was before he was just making a feature update, feature announcement. But the implications of that, when you put all of this together, here's what G2 now possesses the actual technical capability to do. A user leaves a review on G2's platform, okay, including the voice testimonial, right? Well, G2's system that's now powered by Unsurvey's 11 Labs integration can create a voice clone of that from the testimonial. Using the synthetic persona generation tech, G2 can now create additional reviews in that same person's voice for software they've never used, expressing opinions that they've never held, and then once you combine that with all of the dynamic pricing, experimental features of Coralie's stuff, we now have a black box of influence to where if your reviews get too bad, they can present you with dynamic pricing based on how bad your G2 reviews are and hike up that price the worse. Like, this is true B2B Black Mirror shit.
But like, my question is, do you think, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it reminds me of those movies where it's like, oh, there's this orb, and if it ends up in the wrong hands, it could be used for evil or you could use it for good. Do you foresee them getting that way? I mean, there's lots of technology where we can use it for XYZ. Will they? Right? That's the question.
My quick thought on that is, why else would they want this tech? What is the other use case other than to be able to create a closed ecosystem where not only they can exploit the pricing, but they can modify the reviews and completely synthesize them at scale? Am I saying, am I accusing G2 of doing this? Absolutely not. Does the technological infrastructure exist, and is it in place to where they could do this? Absolutely.
I think, there's two sides of that where, yes, things are moving too quickly. I wonder how much of G2 is even aware of the capabilities of this now acquisition. They probably bought it for one use case, and they're going to find out about all of these other capabilities that it has.
Watch it be just completely innocent. And
they're going to be like, what?
They didn't even realize.
They're going to listen to this podcast and be like, we can do what now?
Yeah, oh shit.
It's you who started it. Clark made this happen. You know what I mean? Yeah, that would be hilarious if that actually happened. But then G2 already facing some backlash for some of their other decisions and just their other stuff. I feel like there's also the other side where you are this company, you have a reputation. Are you going to then ruin that by doing something like this, all eyes on me? Or now are they just in this place of influence and then they decide to use it for evil? So there's two sides of that, right? The reputation risk that comes from doing something like that, but also having the power to do something like that. And it's kind of which one would they step in or step to? Historically, what has been their pattern? Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at. Like I've said, was this their plan the whole time? Probably not. If technology like this exists in the market, if someone is going to be capable of doing this, are you sure you want it to be them? The very ones that are incentivized to lie about it, to say that they're not going to do it, who would profit from it the most? That's where my internal mental struggle came from. I was so torn writing this 4,500 word piece because every new thing that I discovered, the finger was pointed at someone else. Like I said in the very beginning, it sounded like this 3-person Y Combinator backed startup took a $1 billion company in G2 for a ride, because it is not revolutionary AI technology. It's a few things zapped together, but as it turns out, there's a lot more to their actual acquisition than this Unsurvey thing. And so I wanted to just fully explore that. That's the kind of things that I dig deep into. And even if you go to Unsurvey's website right now, right there on their homepage, they have a link for this thing called Voice of Brands, which was really interesting. And if you go there, it says, find out what your customers are saying about you. And you can search for a brand. And these brands, by the way, are not MarTech people or whatnot. We're talking about Fortune 500, Activision, Best Buy, Amazon, Jeep, like you name it. And so there's all these tiles there. And if you click on one, it brings up a page with review data. And I went, wait, there's no way that this 3-person Y Combinator backed company has all these clients on, on their list. And it turns out they don't. Their actual customers are on a homepage banner scrolling logos like everybody else in the industry has one. They made this page to synthesize reviews and data. They just made it all up. So you could hear an example. This whole fake portfolio, I don't know what it's for or why it's there, but I went to the tiles for Discord, Activision, and Reddit. And, one review is by a 36-year-old male small business owner from Atlanta. One is from a 24-year-old unemployed gamer male from Texas. The other one, Reddit, is from a 28-year-old female journalist from Washington, D.C. And every single one of the written reviews from each of these individual personas that one of their people has already confirmed that they can just completely synthesize, every one of these people from different parts of the country have the same verbal tics. They're using the same language. And it is very, very obviously AI generated. And also in every single one of these, you can click a play button and hear their 11 Labs integration of someone saying that review.
But are they claiming that's the actual person's voice?
There's nowhere on there that says that it is an actual person's, and I don't even think that particular point might even be irrelevant in these circumstances, because what they're putting on full display is that they are more than willing to completely fake reviews, data about reviews, the impact of that, and they're presenting it like they've done it for Fortune 500 companies. So I don't know what the plan was. I don't think they're necessarily saying, hey, these are all our clients. Maybe it was a sales tool where they did some outreach to a bunch of people at Discord and Reddit and Activision and all these other companies and said, hey, go here and you could see what you're whatever. But the point is, they're putting it out into the world that hey, we can generate fake stuff. We can generate all this fake. And now G2 owns that.
Yeah. Which is funny because I did a series of customer interviews a couple of years ago, and it was funny to me. It was all technical audiences, and all of them said that they don't believe testimonials on B2B websites. And they obviously, a lot of them think that G2 is pay to play. True. And the hilarious thing is now something like this, whether it's G2 or not, I would imagine this isn't the only company that can do this, right? If you have an integration with 11 Labs, you have an integration with these places, you're able to do that. AI can do it right now, probably in just ChatGPT. It's just synthesize, change voices, add context, fill in gaps. These things are not new concepts. And I think it's only going to then get worse when it's also in the hands of smaller players. So if G2 doesn't do it, someone is going to do it. And so this is where it's okay, you're using these powers for good versus evil. And I actually have a story here that will kind of lean into that a little bit. And we'll see what your opinion is live. Oh, yes. The reaction side. Probably should have started with this first so we could get Liam's reactions too, but he can come back again. So I have a CEO friend who emailed me and we text and stuff back and forth. So Sahil Patel, he is the CEO of Spiralize, which is this landing page kind of tech company, but they have access to all the A/B tests in the universe, I guess, across hundreds and hundreds of websites. And they can tell you which is the best A/B test, or test to run for you, or the best variation. Anyway, he sends me this message and he tells me, I will just read the text because I think it's going to be much easier. Okay. So he goes, you won't believe this, but I think I got scammed today. And I was like, oh, go on. And he said, it's a pretty convoluted story, but 2 weeks ago, a guy inbounded us. I did the pitch. He was off camera, which was weird for a CEO, but it was a smaller company and he seemed to have a good sense of what we did. And he actually asked for a contract and we sent it to him. End of story. The only odd thing here is that his accent did not match his LinkedIn profile. His profile was a white dude in New Hampshire, and he definitely sounded like he had an African accent, possibly Nigerian. I couldn't be sure, but it really wasn't an American accent. However, people move around, and sometimes even people with very American sounding names have grown up elsewhere. I've got family members that fit the bill.
Sure.
But yesterday, almost the same exact thing happened, and the guy sounded just like the other guy. His LinkedIn profile was a white dude in South Dakota who had lived in South Dakota for the last 30 plus years and gone to college there as well. He was also off camera, and his accent definitely did not sound American, nor did it even sound like he was from South Dakota. But the fact that he was off camera and the pattern was the exact same as the last time raised my spidey senses. Also, as we started talking, his answers were very, very vague and very similar to the first time it happened. I claimed that we were having a glitch with our demo software and could we please reschedule? And this was about 5 minutes in. Then I went back and listened to the Zoom recording of both calls and was pretty sure that it was the same guy. So weird. Why would anyone do this? What's in it for them? So then I checked with my team, and it turns out after the first call, he had asked for a gift card. Now we do campaigns with gift cards, which, we love to do in B2B. We don't just gift card people that inbound us, but occasionally someone is on the receiving end of our campaigns and we just don't fight them on it. Not unusual. It's unusual, but not unheard of. So they give him the gift card. Okay. There, we figure there's a few sketchy people. Fine. And so now here's the thing. He was responding to emails, answering calls, answering pre-call discovery questions, and had an email address that looked legit and had accepted the calendar invites. When we look closely, he clearly had spoofed the email domain of these actual companies. He must have used ChatGPT, fed it a bunch of my podcasts and posts, which are obviously easy to find. And so he had a reasonably convincing handle on conversion rate optimization jargon. Now, I'm not going to play the calls, but he sent them to me. So I listened to both the calls and I just skipped to all the parts where the prospect was talking. Yes, there is an accent, and it's strange then that Scott Hansen in, the South Dakota for 36 plus years who looks like, Dad McGee, and then this Matt guy had the same thing. And so basically he went back to the LinkedIn ad archive and found this ad for a campaign they had for $306 gift card, and then came back and tried to inbound and get it, which he did get it the first time and was like, sweet, this worked. I'm going to go in for a second time, and impersonated a second persona, spoofed a second domain, and did the same thing, and then got cut short. So where I'm going with this is,
I love it.
Now AI in the wrong hands have enabled people, right, potentially scammers, to get smarter. He's probably through that demo call, he's off camera. They can get the audio. Audio is playing in ChatGPT, responding. And I'm looking at how quickly he's responding. And sometimes it'll be a few seconds later, maybe a little bit delayed. Maybe he'll say something to delay it a little bit. And then
needs to copy and paste what he said.
And saying it. He's reading it. No, he doesn't even need to copy and paste it. You have an audio function.
Oh,
so
right.
While he's talking about it. So this is a classic example of AI in the wrong hands. Now scammers are going to get more sophisticated. B2B companies are going to get duped. So two things here I want to grab your thoughts on. One, gifting campaigns in B2B. And then two, something like this happening. How much more can we expect things like this to keep happening? I mean, this is a small version of your very large version of where this could go.
Okay, so question number one, my thoughts on gifting in B2B campaigns. There is a right way to do it and a very, very wrong way to do it. Spamming gift cards because it's end of quarter, don't do it. That just reeks of desperation. That is indicative of a team that is incentivized to chase a metric that doesn't fit what they actually do in any way. And obviously they were not able to affect the results of such metric in the first place. And now they're trying to give more and more and more. One company that I consulted for about a year ago had done this. And it had gotten to the point where they were doing so many gifting campaigns, Nintendo Switches, the Traeger grills, gift cards, football tickets. I was able to dig into their data and prove that they had trained their audience, their buyers, to wait around for the good stuff. That's when you know you've done it too much. You also have to consider the industry that you're working in. I come from cybersecurity marketing. That shit ain't gonna fly.
Yeah.
Like they're no, don't, like, you're trying to bribe. That's a bribe, considered a bribe. Here's $400 49ers tickets for 30 minutes of your time. No, they will laugh at you. You know, I know this happens all the time in SaaS and all that stuff, like the gift cards work and whatnot. Work as in, you know, not necessarily closed won revenue, but like at least getting a meeting. Sure, it's bait, it's a bribe, but the adults in the room are laughing at campaigns like that. As far as where this is going, and in regards to your scammer story, that whole time I was relying on the knowledge that I have about things like that coming from an industry like security, like information security and cybersecurity. The reason that is interesting to me is not because of the fact that they're doing it. It's the fact that it's made it here. Like, that has always been a thing. Like, social engineering to try to scam people out of money through text messages and like your grandmother's credit union and like all these things, like that's been around 300 years. The fact that they have identified so many gift cards being given away as incentives for a vendor-buyer relationship, like that economy is so robust now that they have decided to target those companies giving them away. That's honestly one of the most fascinating things I've heard in a long time.
The fact that gifting has become such a thing that they're actually picking up on it as a strategy to scam people out of money. That's, you know, when you know something is tried and true and continues on healthily in B2B, you know, gifting campaigns are not dead, because once you have scammers entering the situation, we're not, you know, that means there's enough volume at play for them to pursue it.
Exactly. And that's my whole thing is, how did that gift card economy and B2B gifting get on their radar? Obviously the volume, like the number of campaigns, like sure, I get that, but like those people are generally focused on a completely different professional demographics, as it were. So the fact that it made it into B2B marketing,
amazing, fascinating.
It kind of, I'm amazed.
Yes.
But that also just says, like, when you're designing these gifting campaigns, you know, not if you're just like sending something to incentivize a meeting with an individual, like a very specific, highly targeted ABM play, but like when you're just putting Amazon gift cards in the spam cannon, like you have to be cognizant of where that appears. Like, are you buying ad space for it? Where are you buying ad space for it? Who might see that? Where can, like, oh my God. Like, this is a conversation I really want to have with Tim about like demographics and audience segmentation and like the dials to tune in targeting on different ad platforms, because I know that's his world. I'd be really curious to find out like where the leak is, because like my brain that's done very well in cybersecurity marketing goes, okay, there is a vulnerability that is being exploited. It needs to be patched. Where is that leak?
Well, it looks like, based on
it's only going to get worse.
What Sahil said is they went to the LinkedIn ads library and then looked up I guess, I don't know how you would find it because you could only search by company, I think, but you could find, this company and then see the ads that they were running with the gift card. And that's how they're doing it. So hopefully they're not being targeted with those ads, because then that would be a huge problem. But also it's a black box. We don't actually know if you only understand if your targeting is working if you have some kind of then data on the website to tell you that, which actually leads me to my next topic with you, because we kind of covered it a little bit. Tim and I did a few episodes ago about RB2B being spyware. And then Tim and I were like, you know what? Let's go through this. And so we dug in to the terms of service across 12 competitors of RB2B, and just to kind of see if that provides kind of the similar capabilities. Is that your case, or do you think RB2B is kind of like the lone wolf, or does something a little bit differently that makes them stand out versus like a Sixth Sense?
The tallest hammer gets nailed. And that explains a lot of why you and everybody and their brother has seen me go after RB2B. I was invited by Adam to debate him on his podcast. It was a 2v1. I was against him and Santosh, who was supposed to be an unbiased moderator. I'm sure everybody can imagine how that went. It was fun. It was easy.
So you did go on it then?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And how was it? I mean, outside of it being fun.
It revealed absolutely nothing to me, nothing that I didn't already know. What it revealed to his audience is this idiot's coming on Adam's podcast and going to say that this is a big old scam and like all the bootlickers there. I don't care. What it revealed to the people who went in with an open mind is there is an entire ecosystem of these big data co-ops and de-anonymization platforms and intent data providers, to the point where like you have no clue. Like if our buyers truly knew what was going on behind the scenes in order to identify them, they would call the cops. Like it's insane. But anyway, in terms of like RB2B and you saying that like, if they're a scumbag, then everybody is. True. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Where I draw the line is de-anonymization without consent, because as much as you want to say, oh, we have a cookie banner, do you? None of these platforms have the ability to verify anybody that's using any of these de-anonymization tools actually has that. They have no way of verifying whether it's routed through servers across continents to where it actually does violate GDPR. Like the use cases are great for people that just want to just beat down the door as soon as someone hops on the landing page or the homepage or whatever. Like, sure, there's value in that if you look at it from that angle. But if you take a step back and realize that the people on your website are human beings, like with names, they're people. And they assume that they have a certain level of privacy and right to browse the internet in private. Even people that don't know about things like VPNs and stuff like that, it is just assumed that if you go to a website and you don't fill out a form, you don't buy anything, you don't put in your credit card information, whatever, you just look. Like if you just walk in the Apple store and take a look around and just walk out the door, not speak to anybody, not buy anything, whatever, and just leave, you're not going to assume that the second you get in your car, your phone's going to ring going, hey, you want an iPhone? I saw you in the iPhone store. You want to, hey, Clark Barron, do you want an iPhone? Like, that's insane. It is the most disrespectful tactic in all of B2B. It may be one of the most just egregious, blatant disregards for privacy that exist, and people all over the place are just lauding it left and right like it's the greatest thing. And to those types of people, it is the greatest thing ever. But
are you okay with more like the account level identification as the issue, like because they are person level identification?
That's kind of the line. Like for me personally, that's the shady gray area. If all of these companies are able to say like, hey, somebody at this organization, like I'm okay with it. And I know that anybody could argue and say, well, if you're If you're not okay with this, why would you be okay with that? The difference is that the output is the name of a company. The output is not my face, my name, my phone number. Because if you look at it from, this will kind of explain a lot of patterns in how my brain works and thinking, just like with G2 and just having the ability to, you have to look at the worst case scenario and kind of work your way back. So like if somebody were to get something like RB2B, which is a very simple script that you put, you inject on whatever page you want. It's also free. Anybody can take that script and put it on any website that exists on the internet that they have access to. So imagine that what you mentioned earlier about the, fake scammer from Montana. Imagine a social engineer, a scammer like that, sending a link to the person that was giving out the gift cards that sent you the calls. Imagine they sent him an email with a link looking like it was an actual buyer and saying, hey, can you figure out if this would actually be a good use case for my company? Click on the link and find out more, right? So if I spearfish that person with a phony link and they go to a website, let's say that posts some of the most heinous, dehumanizing content that exists on the darkest depths of the internet, if everybody's with me, then now I have proof that that person that I scammed is consuming that type of content. And all it takes is zipping that file up and sending it to the FBI and you're gone. Like that, is that the absolute end of the spectrum, worst case doomsday scenario? Yes, absolutely. But the technology enables it. And that's the problem. There's a big difference in being able to do that and someone just saying, hey, somebody at Typeform's looking at your pricing page.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah, I can totally see that. All I'm gathering from this is that I'm glad that you are not using these powers for evil, because this is like mastermind shit in the works. It's like, as you're walking me through that dark scenario and I'm like, oh man, I would have never, ever thought of that. So, it might just be this like weird situation where now you're just giving people ideas,
Like, and that's fair. But if
yeah,
no, like I know you're kidding, but also that's a fair point that like you are 100% valid in that perspective. And a lot of people have that with me. Like, why? What does it matter? What does it matter? Well, it matters, and I guess it doesn't matter until it does. And then what are we going to do?
Then what we do?
I use these examples of these companies taking these technologies that they either build or acquire, taking them to the extreme to bring attention to the actual effects that it's having on the effectiveness of modern B2B marketing as a whole. Because if you can educate someone on the actual reasons why a human being would not respond to what you're doing with those tools, if you can explain that in any way whatsoever, then we can start to actually have a conversation of what will actually move the needle in B2B marketing, in sales. And, sometimes it takes an extreme example to get them to go, oh, maybe people don't like it when we do that. And I'm just sitting there going, yeah, look at your data. Of course they don't. Like, yeah, let's do literally anything different.
Okay. I know we're almost at time, but I had one last one to ask you about. I've seen probably a dozen posts about how the integration with ChatGPT and HubSpot is like the best thing since sliced bread. And yours was the only post that's like, hi ding dongs. No, it's not. And here's why. So explain to the good people why this is not a good idea.
So here's my official stance. The capabilities that it has, the use case that is being presented, fabulous. It is phenomenal. I am not backed or supported anyway, financially or otherwise, by HubSpot. But I will tell you this, I'm a HubSpot fanboy. I will buy anything Dharmesh says. Absolutely anything.
Wow. Someone's actually on Clark's like really good side. I mean, other than me.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that being said, if you really want to just say in the comments of the thread that announced that you could do that you've already done it, if that took that little time for you to just expose your entire CRM to OpenAI, you might want to pump the brakes. Generally, like that's all I was saying is like, okay, all right. I think this looks just as cool as you think it looks. This could be really, really awesome. However, does your security team know you're doing this? Does your executive team know you're doing this? Because all it takes is 2 clicks of the button. That's it. And you do not know. There is not any formal technical documentation of exactly what's being called in push or pull or whatever. There's so many nuances to how that data moves through those different ecosystems and those endpoints, to where if you just hook up random HubSpot integrations and you say allow all, just like if that's what they're asking for, like read, write, everything, then whatever you connected to it now has access to every single data point within your HubSpot CRM, meaning not only your contacts and all of their information, but your pipeline, your deals, your support tickets, literally everything. And so, this is another one of those where like I jump to the extreme, like to try to make a point, right? Because if it turns out that we really don't know what's going on, or maybe, something gets mishandled, or an endpoint isn't protected that flies under the radar, or if it's hacked or whatever, then everyone's CRM data that has been fed to OpenAI is now going to create this environment where your competitors can go to ChatGPT and go, hey, how much does my competitor, and then name them, have in their pipeline right now for Q3? Deals?
I don't even think it's that example out of all the ones that you've given me. Yeah. I feel like that one isn't as far-fetched. Honestly, I mean, I think that one would be one of the first use cases if you even catch wind. You know what an extreme case is? The deal versus rippling. Okay. So if you think B2B is like on a scale, if like deal versus rippling is like 10, I would say that's more of like a 2 or 3. That's just like one step further. I mean, I have clients who are like, they pretended to be prospects and sat in on sales calls at their competitors. I mean, that happens all the time. That's 0. This would probably be 2 or 3 on that scale of just asking them. Once it's a widely adopted scenario, they're probably going to have to ask that. But I think it's a lot of like use cases now. Guardrails come later, as it does with everything else. GDPR, same thing. When the whole direct mail spamming thing, that came later, right? You got like someone's got to F it up and do something extreme. I was just watched the Tylenol murders on Netflix, right? They did not seal the pills until someone poisoned a bunch of people. And now they seal bottles, right? It's always the one person that causes it. And that's all it takes. And if you have someone who's aggressive enough, it might get to that situation and they might do that. And it's like Tim and I talk about it all the time. Deal and rippling, they just got caught. How much of this is happening behind the scenes? Builder AI, they just got caught. Right. What is happening truly behind the scenes? Because I've worked at companies and there was some shady shit going on. Was it newsworthy? Maybe not, but there was some shady shit. Right. So that replicated at all of these different places. Yeah,
it's the point of my post was just to say, hey,
think about it before you do it.
Just calm down. Everybody just calm down. Like we're getting to the point where like any novel idea or technology or new feature is adopted like not the next day, like the second it's posted. And you know that so many just like social media managers and what just that had super admin access to their HubSpot immediately hooked that up, and their executives, their security team, no one had a clue that their entire CRM had just been integrated with OpenAI. Like not
it's in the name open.
Well, like not that anything horrific would come from that today, but that is something that you run by them, to say the very, very least. Yes, they're going to have an opinion on that.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on especially such short notice.
My pleasure.
This was great stuff. All I had to do was just like, I think I did like 5 scrolls of your LinkedIn profile. And I was like, oh, I already have a docket full of topics to talk to him about, which we have also covered in some capacity. Tim will be back next week. I'm imagining we'll have you back at some point. I think Liam deserves his own episode. So that's going to come soon. But where do you want people to find you? Maybe find more information on this, dig deeper. I'm allowing you a free plug, which I didn't even give Pep, but you get one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Clark Barron. I'm sure my name will be on this episode. Go subscribe to Burn It Down. It's at burnitdown.marketing. It is the newsletter. It is the rogue media platform in B2B marketing that most MarTech CEOs are terrified of.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, Clark. We'll have you back. Sorry for the ratchet production, Tim interrupting, all of that good stuff. That's like part of, part of the show.
Problem. Yeah. Next time Liam and I will come back, and that time, next time I'll leave early.
We'll have a more traditional episode where Tim and I just cover stuff and you guys are the peanut gallery that get to just react to the insane shit that happens, which most likely know before we do. So
I wish I didn't.
Love that.
Neither does my attorney.
Yeah. You would have to have one, right? We don't have one yet. Are we just flying blind? We should probably get one. Okay.
Well, I would guess you could kind of use me as the canary in the coal mine. Like if I'm getting C and D's, you better mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Clark. Thank you so much for being here. And you know what? Nice to officially meet you.
Awesome. You as well. We'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.
And that's a wrap on Notorious B2B, where we expose the nonsense and remind you that most B2B marketing is just a very expensive guessing game.
Don't, and post a passive-aggressive LinkedIn poll about it. We'll still find you.
And if you have B2B drama we should cover, slide into our DMs. We accept screenshots, leaked internal memos, and questionable brand rebrands.
Until next time, keep your marketing unhinged and your LinkedIn bio free of the words growth hacker. See you later.
Later, skater.